Hello, and thank you for joining us today for our on-demand webinar on understanding in-app fraud and app-ads.txt. We know this is a topic that is pretty prominent in the industry right now, and so many of you have probably been hearing a lot about app-ads.txt, but we wanted to take a little bit of time and talk about fraud from a broader scope to begin with. To make it more convenient for our listeners, we've decided to do an on-demand webinar so that you can watch whenever is convenient for you. I'll get started today by going over our agenda so we can get an idea of the topics we'll be covering. So first, I'll introduce myself and our two guest speakers, and then we'll move on to talking about understanding in-app fraud. Then we'll talk about app-ads.txt, the reason behind the new standard, and how Smaato will help publishers to prepare for this new standard. Lastly, we'll talk about Smaato's recent tag certification for the Certified Against Fraud seal. So to introduce myself, my name is Angie Lee. I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Smaato, sitting in the Hamburg office. And I have two very special guests here with me that will help us talk about in-app fraud and app-ads.txt as well. So my first guest that I have is Zach Fernandez. Zach, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm Zach. I'm in product marketing. I've been with Smaato for about 2 years now, and I sit in the Hamburg office next to Angie.
Thanks, Zach. And next, we also have Sebastian, who's here with us today, too. Sebastian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. My name is Sebastian Hüft. I'm with Smaato for 8 years. I started in a sales team, but after some time I became part of the traffic quality team inside Smaato. And with this experience I have and all the insurance on the supply traffic quality side, I'm now leading the overall quality efforts inside Smaato.
Okay, thanks, Sebastian. So now that we've met our two guest speakers, Sebastian, why don't we go ahead and get started, and you can give us a little intro about in-app fraud.
Yeah, thanks, Angie. So as Smaato is an ad exchange and a mobile in-app SSP, we're not just looking at the quality from the supply side, but also on the demand side. And as you can see here, fraud has all its specific on both ends. So there can be threats to the publisher side, which we are referring to as ad quality, but also threats on the advertiser sides, which we internally call traffic quality. Threats to the publisher sides are usually ad violations, and these are not just harming the publishers, so the one who's developing, owning, or operating the applications or the inventory, but ultimately it's the user who's being harmed by it. And this can start very simple with observable violations, such as inappropriate ads. So ads you just see from the contextual side don't want to show your users or the user don't want to see, can be adult, hate, or any violence as examples. On the other hand, some other ads that are violations and that can be observed easily by the user are auto redirects. So those are ads which are basically clicking themselves automatically, if you want so. And as executed, the user is being redirected inside or to the landing page, or in our case, mainly inside the App Store. Of course, the user gets annoyed, and for the publisher, they use the user for this session inside the app. And of course, if such things happen often, user gets annoyed, the publisher loses their users, and so that's why such violations are already very harmful because they can be easily observed. On the other hand, there are more examples, things that could happen inside the background without the user actually seeing it. One example would be malware. So injecting any kind of bad code, such as viruses, inside the phone, which could lead also to that the phone is being hijacked by somebody third. A very prominent example of such things is also crypto miners. So those kind of violations are used to mine for cryptocurrencies. So the benefiting part is then again the one who places those ad violations inside the phone. It's draining the battery. The user device gets slower, and in the end, without giving this user consent, of course, it's violating the user. Those are just some examples on that end. There are of course many more, but going over to threats to advertisers. So, and this is usually what the industry refers to as fraud. So if we talk about threats to advertisers, the fraud or brand safety issues, this is the prominent examples you usually see in your news feeds. So on the user device, it can be ad stacking or background activities, which ultimately, so those are ads which are delivered to the phone, to a real user's device, but are not seen to any user, so they're invisible. Another threat, app spoofing. An example here, the low priced inventory is being sold to someone as a premium brand. So spoofing the name, making it higher price than it actually is also one of those threats. Or on the other hand, click fraud, click injection. So there were those articles in the past. So pretending a performance which isn't there, or even stealing someone else's conversion by injecting a click, also of course harms everyone in this supply chain, or many parties inside this supply chain. So this happens on user devices. Other stuff, which is artificial machine-generated traffic, usually referred to as bot networks. So this is not a real user traffic, but it comes from a standalone machine. It comes from servers or data centers. So no user interaction at all, just bluntly generating artificial traffic. On the other hand, with those and enabled in the threats to publishers, so if you inject code to phones, you hijack devices, you can create bot networks on real devices, and therefore taking those over and with those hijacked devices create a huge amount of artificial ad traffic, which in the end, of course, no one is benefiting really for. No user can see those ads, and this is the main concerns currently in this industry. But as said in this presentation, we will really focus on the fraud, so threats to the advertisers, and which we also refer to as invalid traffic. And there's an MRC definition for this invalid traffic, differentiating it into GIVT and SIVT. So GIVT, general invalid traffic, is usually traffic that can be identified through routine means, which means it can be from a data center, can be in search engine crawler and so on, but ultimately it's very easy to identify and to filter such traffic, because you can apply lists, so IPs where you know an IP list, you know those are from data centers, or you can simply check the user agent or other parameters standardized to identify such general invalid traffic. It's getting more complicated, and this is really where the fraud starts for the sophisticated part. So sophisticated invalid traffic means someone's really making an effort, a criminal effort, in most of the cases, to mimic a real user traffic, either on a machine or, as already said, it can be even on a hijacked device. And this is very difficult to detect because it requires advanced analytics and or a very significant human investigation on this. And those cases are usually more complex to filter, as it's not like a list you can apply, but you need really first to identify it so that you can filter such traffic. One example that shows the differences between GIVT and SIVT is shown on this slide. So you can imagine you as a user sitting behind a proxy for whatever reason, but you're still a real user, but it appears you're not from your home country. You might use a proxy for whatever reason and being routed through a different country. And for this, from an advertiser point of view, you're not in their target range anymore. If the advertiser wants to reach you in this second country, but actually you're not in their scope, this is simply invalid to the advertiser, but it's a general invalid traffic because it's not done in an incentive way to trick someone in the system. The other part here would be sophisticated invalid traffic. If someone by consent really routes traffic, a lot of traffic, either through proxies to make it appear traffic comes from a more valuable geo than it actually is, or even generates out of those data centers artificial traffic. This is then sophisticated, and this is then really a fraudulent activity.
All right, thank you, Sebastian. So there's a lot of good information there. Hopefully, having these examples helps illustrate the differences behind the general invalid traffic and sophisticated invalid traffic so that our audience has a little bit clearer idea of what exactly the differences are. So now moving on to our next subject, we're going to talk a little bit about the history behind App-ads.txt. We were all familiar with ads.txt to begin with, and then we were waiting on this commenting period. So now that App-ads.txt has been released and we're starting to hear a little bit more about this in the industry, I'll let Zach help us understand exactly where this came from, what exactly publishers need to do, and how Smaato is helping to address this new standard.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Angie. So before we get into app ads text, let's review a brief history of ads text. So ads text provides a way for publishers to list the authorized digital sellers of their programmatic ad space inventory. And the key benefit of ads text is that it can be used to fight against fraud and any misrepresentation of domains. So ads text offers buyers a way to quickly and effectively check the validity of the inventory from the publishers they purchase from. Buyers are able to avoid spoofed domains and fraudulent inventory while increasing transparency in the ecosystem. So the biggest question is how effective ads text has been. And actually, it's been quite successful in cutting down a lot of the fraudulent behaviors in selling and buying of inventory. In fact, in 2018, 73% of the top 5,000 programmatic web domains had already adopted ads text. And according to recent reports by AdExchanger, publishers who had not adopted ads text are actually losing money. Well, here's what app developers and publishers need to do. First, they need to create an app ads text file that lists all of the approved monetization partners. They then need to provide a website, for instance, a business website that is used for marketing the app, and add this URL to the App Store's metadata listings. Then they'll need to upload the app ads text file to that web domain URL. And from there, buyers can check whether the inventory being offered is legitimate. The check is done through the use of a third-party certified crawler, which specifically looks for listed partners that are located in the app ads text file. So if publishers don't have a file uploaded to their web domain, then they will most likely lose out on opportunities to sell their inventory. To help publishers adopt this initiative, we created an app ads text file snippet generator in our Smaato publisher platform, SPX. This allows publishers to easily copy information about the partners that are associated in the Smaato exchange. To find the generator in SPX, all you need to do is just go to the top right corner of the dashboard, the drop-down menu, which is right next to the email address, and from there you can locate the app ads text link, which will take you to the snippet generator. So that is essentially the easy process that publishers need to do from the SPX side, and fairly straightforward. And from this point, I'll hand it over to Angie.
Okay, thank you, Zach. So it seems like it's pretty straightforward and not too difficult for publishers to implement with the new App-ads.txt standard. So hopefully the generator in SPX is going to help our publishers make things a lot faster and a lot smoother. So let's talk a little bit about the recent tag certification that Smaato just achieved. So Sebastian, can you tell us a little bit first about what exactly this tag certification is and how we were able to achieve it? What kind of requirements were necessary to be met?
Sure. So the TAG, the Trustworthy Accountability Group, an organization which forms a group of partners who really want to do good business inside the market. And the Certified Against Fraud seal is one of those certifications where you can prove that you are doing efforts to prevent such activity happening on your platform, or if you're a buyer, that you won't buy from that. And yeah, it's one of those seals, and I will come to the requirements in a second. But obviously, inside Smaato, we have established teams. We have dedicated teams on this quality. We're working with several vendors. We have the processes already which go even above those requirements from the seal. But ultimately, this seal asks everyone who applies for that to employ, first of all, an IP blacklisting to remove data center threats. Secondly, to apply the MRC invalid traffic detection and filtration methods. You can either do this by your own MRC accredited solution or by facilitating a third-party vendor, which we do using Forensic. As a third, you need to implement the payment ID system, which was also introduced by the IAB and TAG earlier. And using the pchain object inside the OpenRDB to disclose really where's the traffic coming from, and everyone in the chain can then identify this process. Last but not least, honoring the advertisers.txt will be part of the upcoming certification. So from June on, everyone who wants to apply for the Certified Against Fraud seal needs to also honor, as an intermediary, you need to honor the advertisers.txt, or even if you're a seller, you need to implement this. And also upcoming, this will include the App-ads.txt, which was just introduced by Zach more in detail. So those are the main requirements. Of course, there's other items like documentation and so on, but from a technical perspective, this is what everyone who wants to apply, and this is what we ultimately Smaato comply with, and this is what we achieved the seal for.
Awesome. Thank you, Sebastian. I know this is something that we're all very proud of here at Smaato. And just to drive the point a little bit further home about how important this is, if we look at the 2017 tag fraud benchmarking study, the use of tag certified distribution channels for digital advertising cut the invalid traffic rate to 1.48% across more than 6.5 billion display and video impressions, which reduces the level of fraud by over 83% compared to the broader industry average. So it is really a big deal. The certification, the effort in reducing the level of fraud has been evidenced as being very effective so far. I also want to talk a little bit about the three-pronged approach that we have when it comes to in-app fraud and how we combat this. So we look at the first step as being our proprietary in-house technology. So from a platform level, we utilize machine learning to automatically look for suspicious behavior, which will then automatically detect, it will automatically block any sort of malicious activity. So this is kind of our first filter through in-app fraud. And then the second portion is our dedicated in-house team of experts. So we have an entire team of market and traffic quality employees that their sole responsibility is to look at different types of fraud and how to reduce this. And these employees are located in offices all around the globe. So this is just a great support that we bring to our clients in terms of taking a look at in-app fraud and helping to reduce it across the exchange. And then the third approach that we have here is our relationship with third-party vendors. So we have partners like Forensic and Protected Media that help us to really build a strong defense against all types of threats. So this is something that we think is unique to Smaato's approach and something that we're very proud of and has been effective so far. So when it comes to in-app fraud and traffic quality and market quality, this is something that we've always been really focused on and we'll continue to focus on going forward. But that's all the time that we have for today. So hopefully you found this on-demand webinar to be valuable. If you have any questions on anything that we didn't get to today, please feel free to send us an email and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thanks for your time.